World News in 5.
Right now.
News and developments making headlines around the world in 5 minutes. World News in 5. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Good day, this is World News in 5 here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Tensions continue to rise in the Middle East as Iran and Israel exchange direct attacks, marking a dangerous escalation in the region's conflict. Overnight, Iran struck an Israeli hospital in Beersheba, prompting swift retaliation from Israel, which targeted nuclear facilities in Natanz, Isfahan, and the partially built Arak reactor. The attacks mark a week since Israel began its air campaign, claiming to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons, an allegation Tehran denies. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed that Iran would pay the full price and hinted at broader goals, saying any regime change would be up to the Iranian people. Israel accused Iran of deliberately targeting civilians using cluster munitions in the hospital strike, a move Israeli officials say violates international law. Iran claimed it was aiming at military and intelligence sites nearby. Meanwhile, Iran's Revolutionary Guards launched drone and missile strikes on Israeli defense targets in Tel Aviv and Haifa. Iran also warned it could change strategy if a third party joins the war, a possible reference to the United States. At the White House, President Donald Trump is expected to decide within 2 weeks whether the U.S. will get involved. Behind the scenes, diplomatic back channels are reportedly open between Washington and Tehran. With heavy casualties and rising rhetoric, the region braces for what may become a wider conflict with no clear end in sight. In our news, New Zealand has suspended over 18 million New Zealand dollars in funding to the Cook Islands, citing a breakdown in trust following the island nation's growing ties with China. A spokesperson for Foreign Minister Winston Peters said Thursday that the funding freeze covering the 2025 to 2026 period reflects concerns over the Cook Islands' failure to consult Wellington before signing a broad partnership deal with Beijing earlier this year. The agreement, which excludes security cooperation, spans areas like deep sea mining and education. However, New Zealand sees the move as a breach of their long-standing consultation pact. The Cook Islands, a self-governing state in free association with New Zealand, receives both economic and defense support. Prime Minister Mark Brown has defended the China deal, saying it complements, not replaces, relations with New Zealand and others. The announcement comes as New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon visits Beijing, where he is expected to raise concerns over China's growing influence in the Pacific. Security analysts warn that withholding aid could backfire, possibly driving Pacific nations closer to China. More news overseas. Ukraine and Russia have conducted another exchange of prisoners of war, or POW, officials from both sides confirmed on Thursday. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky shared images of the released Ukrainian soldiers, many of whom had been held since the early stages of Russia's invasion in 2022. The freed troops, some sick or wounded, were welcomed home draped in national flags. Russia's defense ministry said its returned POWs would also undergo medical treatment and rehabilitation. The swap is part of an ongoing agreement brokered in Istanbul. While exact numbers weren't disclosed, the exchange marks one of the few areas of cooperation between the two countries as broader peace talks remain stalled. And that concludes today's edition of World News in 5. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, I am Peñano. Good day.
World News in 5.
Right now.
News and developments making headlines around the world in 5 minutes. World News in 5. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.